I think that something that we're exploring at the moment, right, is probably the next natural stage is connected data piece. Is also the live part of this.
Yeah.
Being able to share this with the restaurant team live, right? So not just connecting it after the visit, connecting it while they're there.
Yeah. So something that we were talking about that I've shared with Ben is a live guest dashboard. So allowing you to see live who's in store, who the high spenders are. The challenges I think we have at the moment is that person who spends, I don't know, £2,000-3,000 may come into your venue, but walk in with a friend. So they're not the high spender. And how do we trigger that? I think one of the challenges we're trying to figure out is how do we link that together?
Welcome to Captive Conversations, brought to you by Captive Wi-Fi. I'm your host, Adam Foreman. This podcast brings you the best stories from suppliers, marketers, and operators from our beloved hospitality sector. Now, let's get on with the show.
Thank you so much for coming today. This is my first stage style talk, but I have a podcast I've done a podcast with Ben, so feel free to listen to that one. That was pretty good. So this is Ben Heppell from Aqua Restaurant Group, Global Marketing Director. So I'll let you say hello to
Global Digital Marketing Director.
Global Digital Marketing Director, apologies. So we're going to talk about basically the guests who came back and the moment you almost missed. This is one of the biggest challenges in technology at the moment, and understanding the customer guest journey. So Aqua have a range of different restaurants across London and globally, and having that high-end piece is always difficult to track the customer journey and understand where they're coming from. So let's move into it. So one of the things we're going to talk about really is which I'm pretty interested in to start with is what are the this one's for you, Ben. What are one of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in hospitality marketing within the brand you have at the moment?
I think our biggest challenge is the same. It's been the same since I took on the role. Our biggest challenge has always been understanding our repeat guest rate and making an effect on that. Our first time acquisition marketing is fairly strong, and it isn't a challenge. It's becoming a challenge because things are becoming more expensive, right? And the reliance on first time acquisition is probably too high for us, and long term will be a real problem. So our biggest challenge at the moment is building things to bring people back that don't feel unpremium or too automated.
Yeah. Just teeing off actually from your history, coming from ecom as well, which I haven't asked you about this one. What do you see the difference really from where you were to where you are now? Because it's a completely different scope, right, and space.
Yeah, but because in ecom, and this is only where I worked, right? Like there will be some high-end brands that don't feel like this, but in ecom we're kind of like buy or die, right? So you transact through the website, and if we're having a abandoned basket and that kind of stuff, but we really didn't care about how you felt too much about maybe the intrusiveness of those tactics to win people back, but those things don't translate as well into sort of premium hospitality, right?
No, it's completely
it's not it's not currently done, but it's also not the experience you want to give a customer by keep pounding them to bring them back. Yeah, it's a light touch.
It's a light touch. So yeah, amazing. So I think one of the things we talk about here really, and you can see from our list, is the difference from what you get when you start. So the nicest thing you have is obviously you guys use 7 Rooms as a booking system. It's a great booking system, great customer data. So you know about the booker, information about the booker when they arrive. You've got the tags. It's fantastic. But the challenge we're all talking about is that missing piece in the middle as well. So I think one of the interesting things is when you've got that group who are coming, capturing that additional data. We are trying to bring that data together. 7 Rooms is trying to allow you to group those people together. But I think one of the really interesting things which is what you're building at the moment, is that customer journey on first visit. So you've got your first visit from 7 Rooms. Obviously they make the booking. They get this beautiful, lovely email afterwards. You've got the feedback built into it. But for the Wi-Fi, you're now basically doing the same sort of journey.
Yeah. But this, I think there's something you just touched on there is, one, we're assuming first, like our source of truth has always generally been around first is our 7 rooms customer, right? But like you've just kind of touched on there, they could have walked in first.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where the Wi-Fi data comes in. And also we know about them assuming that their behavior hasn't changed. And that does require, some looking after the data because, you know, we were in one of the venues the other day and we realized that one of our highest repeat customers had suddenly changed the way that he was even booking with us.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
So if that customer starts booking through different email, et cetera, then suddenly that guest profile changes and we end up with a lack of understanding about even some of our most valuable guests.
That's really interesting, especially in certain CRM systems linking by email, right?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So let's go on to, so I think one of the nice things we want to talk about as well is we've been working together for a while. Across the group, actually, it's interesting enough that I think for the premium type of venue you are, the customer journey is really important. And I think what we've built together in that view is allowing the customer to actually choose the opt-in. We've got other brands that are around the same, but this is definitely peaking. And it's really interesting to understand that people coming to your venues, I think because the customer journey is in keeping to the design and the layout, that I think they're opt-in potentially more. Why do you think people are generally sort of like choosing to opt in on data for your brands?
I think that they're assuming or hoping maybe they're going to get something from that opt-in. You know, I do think I won't tangent into this, but you said something there, and I do think opt-in in hospitality seems to be a tiny bit of a grey area outside of us. I don't think we're as tight as other industries are around it. It seems we're using opt-in very loosely, but we don't really want to communicate to guests that haven't opted in, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not interested in that. So I think that the assumption I would make is that people want to hear from us. That's why they're opting in.
Yeah. Amazing. So this is something that was previous, to be fair. So, without connected data, a booking confirmation with a name spelled wrong, a generic missue, obviously email 6 months later, a birthday offer. And then obviously with the connected data piece, we're looking at that re-engagement, understanding who they are. So they've booked for 7 rooms. They came 3 more times later. That data feeds into one place to understand those patterns. As you mentioned, if someone's changing their patterns, but they are connecting to the Wi-Fi with the right email address, hopefully, you then be able to see the visit patterns to understand what's going on and maybe, have a look at that flow. So this is, what's your thoughts on that connected data piece?
I think that something that we're exploring at the moment, right, is probably the next natural stage is connected data piece is also the live part of this.
Yeah.
Being able to share this with the restaurant team live, right? So not just connecting it after the visit, connecting it while they're there.
Yeah. So something that we were talking about that I've shared with Ben is a live guest dashboard. So allowing you to see live who's in store, who the high spenders are. The challenges I think we have at the moment is that person who spends, I don't know, £2,000-3,000 may come into your venue, but walk in with a friend. So they're not the high spender. And how do we trigger that? I think one of the challenges we're trying to figure out is how do we link that together? I know it's hard, right? You're not going to go up to the customer and say who they are, but if we can try and give you the front of house staff more information on there to pull it through. So we will know in the next couple of months really on how that works. But I think you're right, giving front of house staff the more tools to be able to see it. 7 rooms ages ago, about 2 years ago, were saying they were going to put Google Glass, and as you walk around the venue, you could see who's what on what table, which is a nice theoretical. But that live guest dashboard could be an interesting piece.
I mean, I would be, if you stick on that for a second, I'd be guessing with this bit, but having never been an operator or working front of house, but I believe there probably are means and methods to work out who those people are, just because you don't have them on 7 rooms right in front of them. So by using that live dashboard, putting some onus back onto that team to go and work out who those people are and connect those profiles in the restaurant, right? There is a lot of this that we think is, I think when on this journey, like last year, I kind of ripped it up a little bit because I wanted to try and go back to the table, right? Rather than thinking, okay, what's all this stuff here, and then like all this tech stuff that we could connect, and how could we really like leverage the data for us to make more money? Just we've got bums on seats, we've got a database, how can we make more out of it?
Yeah.
Let's really segment it, all that kind of stuff, right? But then really for actually, this needs to start at the table, right? So how do we go backwards to make the guest experience better, make the front of house or the service team, like then be part of that journey, right? And even if that means some inevitable manual intervention, but they do something, they tag something, or they even ask questions to the customer for the data that we don't have to fill in the gaps, but we bring it back to the table rather than trying to almost fix all the problems that maybe happen in the restaurant outside of the restaurant. Let's fix them in the restaurant, and then this just kind of supplements it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting having that conversation. I think the type of locations that you have, it's natural to go and speak to customers and other front of house staff. I think some casual dining brands will struggle. But if you're going to a premium venue, you want that communication, right? So I think it's an interesting conversation of fusing marketing and ops together. The front of house with marketing. Quick question: How is marketing and ops together within the brand? Are they quite fused together?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's I mean, they have to be in synergy, right? Because I think in the past, even in the time that I've been at Aqua, they have sat very separately.
Yeah.
But we are facing a tougher trading period, right? You know, for a lot of people, I think the start of this year is not really like we started strong, and then there's been some external things in the world that push prices up everything and reduce like consumer confidence. So I think we're in a tough. This could be what I thought this year might be great, and I think it could be tougher than I thought it was going to be. So we have to be working together on that thing, right? Yeah, yes, marketing's job is to fill the venue, but I see it as more than that. I think it's actually being able to, certainly from maybe my skills or expertise or background, is to be able to feedback through review or whatever it might be, how we can actually try and listen to our customers are clearly telling us to improve the operations, but maybe improve the products, maybe improve the offering, right?
Nice. I think one of the things we talked about previously as well is feedback. So obviously the platform that we have has feedback built into it. We've also got someone over there that's working with us to Prithvi from Sentiment Search. Give us a wave. A feedback piece working. Obviously, you get feedback from Severmans. Obviously, we have the feedback too. How have you changed that slightly?
We were quite focused on just getting our Google review up, right? That was the only thing that we were trying to do. We weren't maybe taking into account enough of the negative reviews as well. They were being fed, not necessarily undealt with, but we weren't grouping together all of that feedback that we were really getting, and you know, a lot of it has common themes. So as soon as we're starting to hit a common theme, that's when we know change needs to be made, right? And I think something that we want to do moving forward as well is act quicker and better on positive, not just negative.
Yeah.
Right. Like we get a 1 star, we start jumping around trying to do the world for a customer, but we don't seem to move as quick when we get a great review, like at how quickly we should be channeling that person, you know, into other venues of the group or back to the same venue. We should be rewarding them as much as we're rewarding the negative.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting when you start feeding stuff into feedback platforms, then you can start feeding into the community and loyalty piece. So I know that's something we've spoken about previously as well. We don't talk about loyalty at the brand, but we do talk about community. So obviously with the platform that we have, we do Wi-Fi to loyalty in 15 seconds, which is pretty cool. I should have that as a slide, but I didn't. Where are you on that community piece? Because I know that are you still testing in one location with loyalty, or what sort?
No, but because we changed the concept of that location, so we went through we weren't sure whether to do single venue loyalty or group loyalty. That's a decision that is above me. I think that when we learned a little bit from our testing process of that, and I actually think we want to come back and go group rather than single venue. So I think that we will look to do something this year, but
So that gives each venue their own identity, right? As well, it'll give their own venue, each venue their own
but
identity.
we want to do group.
Oh, you want to do group?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
But I think, not to come back too much to what we've already said, but it would fit back into that. Right, there's plenty of loyalty tech on offer.
Yeah.
And here, but again, it's what fits best from table.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, no, you're right. Actually.
Yeah. Because we're not and this is no disrespect, but we're not a big volume venues like, that are successful in the app and loyalty market. I always look at, say, Pizza Express as maybe like the gold standard of an app, or how to do it. I mean, I don't think I've ever paid full price of Pizza Express, and the kids are free, and it's I love that because they'd throw half the food on the floor anyway. So but it's always quick, easy, simple, right? And I know where I stand.
Yeah.
And their marketing efforts are probably more around getting people into that app, whereas it isn't. It's going to be more around trying to create something that's not necessarily just exclusive, but is linked back to the guest, all around guest experience, rather than
again that light touch, right? It says little tease into the guest profile, rather than giving them freebies because you wouldn't do it. But it's about in nurturing that contact.
Have you ever noticed that when people refer to that kind of, they would always say, "I get this with like, oh, have you got this?" Like loyalty, because I get this. Like often they will use those specific words to describe it. I get this.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, it's not offered to a lot of people, but that's how you want them to feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's their personal piece rather than a group token or like Pizza Express piece. It's just everyone's got the same offers.
Yeah.
You want to be able to differentiate. I think there's challenges out there with different loyalty platforms. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen this year with different platforms coming out. So. This is basically what we were looking at previously. So one of the most important things that we see is mapping that journey. So mapping that journey from end to end. So this is one of the things I was talking about earlier. So basically, from book it yourself, the booking confirmation to the follow-up email, those pieces are really important. Then we've got the questions. We were talking about having that survey piece, and it's a little bit challenging asking people questions. So I think sometimes, depending on how it's presented, that individual piece on that customer survey, rather than making it forced, do you like X, is something that's important for us. And this is the one that's really important as well, is that trigger message that we were talking about earlier, on visit do X, and so on. And then, there we go. So yeah, I think that was something that was really important in building the guest journey out into where things are going. So I think for you, you've got the CRM and you've got the booking platform sort of together. You're currently building or have that guest journey in. So right now you've got book a table through 7 rooms that does the trigger. So I think moving forward, and something we've spoken about before as well, is how do we get that right message sent, find the right platform that plugs into the Wi-Fi, the booking and everything else, and sending the right feed. There's some new platforms coming into hospitality. I think we've spoken about it already. Is that something you'd like to see? I book a table. That email that gets sent is that customized, beautiful, soft touch. They know your preferences. They know who you are, rather than a generic, I've booked a table, thank you.
I hark back to I was a insurance advisor one time in my life, right? So I had my own client base, and there is a difference on how you would interact with an individual if you were doing it individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's how you use a platform or a CRM to create that same thing. Like that you're able to, it feels like you're being spoken to from a person, right, rather than you're just getting that blanket thing, which it's really challenging. I think they do it well in other industries and not in hospitality.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at retail, right? Retail and so on. They get it really well. You connect to the Wi-Fi. You connect even in retail with Wi-Fi, some of our Wi-Fi clients as well. Bringing that platform in, they do a really good job of connecting bricks and mortar to install really nicely.
Yeah.
Online tracking to online purchase through to install. So I think it's interesting to hear hospitality we're quite advanced, but we are still quite behind. It's like the club cards, you know what I mean? And they've done it really well. So I think,
but it should be better because the information that is probably available is richer. Like a retail fashion customer doesn't know, and we know what people like to eat.
Yeah.
So the information should be richer. We should be able to build better guest understanding based on that. But that piece doesn't just quite exist at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a challenge there. There's a few coming to the market that are out there. I think the retail tech's coming in. I think I keep saying this to people as well. Like, my dream is I book a table at Aqua in the Shard. I get a confirmation. They know I've opted in. They know that my wife's gluten-free. They know that I have kids. So the CRM piece has all the information and pieces together. So that when I get that email, I've opted in, so you can market the hell out of the email with all the other venues of what you're doing, what's going on. You know that why I like, you know what I spend, you know my preferences, and the email that I get is, "Hi Adam, thanks so much for coming back. We really appreciate you being with us and being part of the community," which doesn't really exist right now, does it?
No.
So I think that's something that our dream together is something that we do well. So, I'm talking about tech-wise and within the tech stack. So Wi-Fi is one piece, right? So there's Wi-Fi, you're looking at loyalty, then there's feedback. At the moment, is everything plugged together, or is it a little bit fragmented?
It's still a little bit fragmented, yeah.
So the plans this year are going to be interesting plans.
Yeah.
Nice. I think a
lot of that.
yeah.
I love that sits with the reservation system. And
Say again?
A lot of it has sat with the reservation system and the inability to be able to move that around. But I think we'll solve that challenge this year.
Yeah. Nice. So when is there a central reservations team that manages reservations, or are they individually set throughout the group?
No, it's central.
Central. So they are able to see those single profiles coming in and tracking. So do they actively track those customers to see the value of what's coming in?
No.
Okay, so that's another challenge as well, right? So, and that's another thing, if I'm doing that with their system and then bringing it to the table, brings that nice piece together, right? So I think everyone has challenges in hospitality. I think probably one of the biggest pieces, that data, right? Of where it all goes. So it's interesting that you've pulled out data from your booking platform. I'd love to hear how you're using that for analytics.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing when we pulled it out was to look at, I spent maybe 2 months looking at repeat guest rate. That was my first thing to do, behavior around repeat guest rate, what was really happening, what should I even be measuring, and then speaking to other people in similar roles in similar venues to see how they would look at it. And we kind of landed on trying to group everything as like a cohort, right? So we would say, if we looked at a long enough period of time, our repeat guest rate was just going up, right? Because what was happening is there's just more people to come back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So actually it was hiding the real problem. And the real problem was the time between first and second visit was getting bigger. So we weren't actually really affecting our repeat guest rate now when we need bums on seats. So to move forward, we were like, okay, let's group everything as a cohort, right? So Jan 2026, we want to know of our first time acquisition, which, like I said at the start, this is really quite a lot of our customer base, 70% on there, right?
Yeah.
Of our first time acquisition, when do they come back? 30, 60, 90, 180 days or beyond.
Yeah.
And then when we're putting things in place to try and affect that, when we look back, because we already know last year's data, we see, are we making an improvement in that, right? And that's how we're going to measure it from now on.
Yeah.
And that's how we set that. And then really to make it like an easy KPI for the rest of the team or the ops team, we're looking around first to second visit rate.
Yeah.
Right. So they understand that. That's their easy part. So we'll look at the rest behind that. And that's how we're measuring our data moving forward.
How is that? So, and you're giving them the metrics to look at to see.
Correct.
And has that helped them understand?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. So the res platform is great at reservations, and that missing piece of the data. The data's there already, right? Because you've got it.
Yeah.
But it's that putting it in. So,
but it came from the amount of management meetings I'd be in, and someone would say, "What's the repeat guest rate?" And they just that figure would be coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They say it's great, and they would then start to give this slightly random profile of who that customer was that were coming back when asked, and I was like, this isn't how it should be. We should be able to say with complete faith, and probably not the best way of putting it, but like that is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what that demographic looks like based on the information we have.
So the question for you, actually, putting Wi-Fi data into the same thing, because you're currently not feeding that in, are you?
No.
That would be interesting even more to understand that return rate.
Yeah.
Because that can potentially increase it.
It should do, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be interesting. We'll have that conversation afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you, guys. This has been really good. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Cheers. Thanks, guys.